Some wrestling talent were absolutely made by having an epic introduction, like Chris Jericho when he called out The Rock on Monday Night Raw, or Shinsuke Nakamura when he took on Sami Zayn at NXT TakeOver, or when The Shield destroyed John Cena and Ryback at the Survivor Series. And others, well, not so much. Unfortunately, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. I'm Senor Siete for 7 Rasslin, and here are the 7 worst debuts in pro wrestling history. Now, if you like this video, please be sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Number 1. Edge. In the summer of 1998, WWF programming featured vignettes for a cool club kid who was just being moody on the city streets. We didn't know much about this handsome drifter, but he was cool. He went by the name of Edge, not to be confused with The Edge, the U2 guitarist, and if Vince Russo had his way, the character would have been a deaf mute. And while that isn't a bad idea for a character at all, it probably would benefit from a talent who actually knows sign language. The audience was hyped for the streamy loner to make his debut, and they got their wish on June 22nd of that year in a match against Los Barricos member Jose Estrada. And the match was quick, less than a minute. And not because they were trying to make Edge look like a monster, no. It happened because he injured Estrada almost immediately with a flipping plancha. Edge would be victorious by countout, and the look on his face was less, I'm a badass, and more, oh crap, what did I just do? Years later, Edge would tell Inside the Ropes, here's how I look at it. Nowhere to go but up. See, he's a glasses half full kind of guy. Number 2. Team PCB. Hey, remember when Stephanie McMahon invented women's wrestling? It was during an episode of Monday Night Raw where the billion-dollar princess decided that the Bella Twins and Alicia Fox were just causing too much trouble. So, she brought up a trio of talent from NXT and teamed them up with established WWE veterans. The NXT Women's Champion Sasha Banks formed a unit with Naomi and Tamina. And Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch partnered with Paige. Best of all, the teams were given cool new names. The Bella Twins and Alicia Fox were called Team Bella. Why? Because screw you, Alicia. Sasha, Naomi, and Tamina were called Team BAD. BAD obviously stood for beautiful, and damn, Tamina must be a really nice person to have a job at the company for so long despite not being particularly good at wrestling or showing much interest in it. And the final trio got a name that highlighted their devastating maneuvers. Paige's PTO lock, Lynch's disarmor armbar, and Charlotte Flair's figure 4 leg lock. So they were known as the Submission Sorority. But apparently nobody in the WWE creative team had the time to do a quick little googly search, because if they had, they would have quickly learned that that terminology was already claimed by an adult website. Submission, sorority, oh, right, yeah, do. Fortunately, that's the kind of mistake you only make once. Isn't that right, tag team formerly known as the Banger Brothers? Number 3, Glacier. In April 1996, WCW started running mysterious vignettes for something known as Blood Runs Cold. They were kind of cool, no pun intended. They promised us that our world was about to change. Eventually, the vignettes would reveal a few more details on what the world changing was going to entail. There was like a Stargate-looking thing, and boots, and a creepy eye, I guess. And we would get a name, Glacier. Glacier was coming, very slowly. Wow, honestly, that actually fits the Glacier gimmick really well. And finally, in September of that year, and remember, the first vignette aired 5 months prior, Glacier made his debut on WCW Pro, which, if you don't know, is a WCW show that I didn't even know existed until I started researching this piece. To put that in perspective, that would be like a big star of today debuting on WWE Level Up. And when he finally made an appearance, what we got was a thinly veiled ripoff of the Mortal Kombat character Sub-Zero. The act never really recovered from that monumental build-up and astounding letdown, even after they added several more fighting game-inspired characters like Mortis and Wrath. Audience reaction runs cold. Number 4, Steve Austin. The artist formerly known as Stunning Steve Austin had experienced quite a career resurgence after being fired from WCW in 1995. As superstar Steve Austin, the man who would eventually be known as Stone Cold, was making a name for himself in ECW by cutting biting shoot promos and having hilarious impressions of Hulk Hogan and the American Dream Dusty Rhodes. By the time he had healed from his triceps injury and was ready to step back in the ring, wrestling fans were ready to crown their new extreme icon. But Austin only had a handful of matches in ECW before he was signed away by the World Wrestling Federation. Fans were downright giddy with the prospect of a gritty, shoot-from-the-hip Austin squaring off against WWF stars such as Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. But that all went south when Ted DiBiase brought him out on the Brother Love Show as the Ringmaster. Just a pun on an old-timey carnival barker. Yeah. And then he was the $1 Million Champion. He was awarded Ted DiBiase's vanity belt from the 80s. Great job, guys. It just didn't fit. And to hear Austin tell it, he knew it at the time. He was saddled with that weirdo gimmick for the rest of his life and never became one of the biggest names in wrestling history. So sad. Number 5, Farouk. Before he was this guy, or even this guy, or this guy, Ron Simmons was a WCW Tag Team Champion as a member of the Badass Unit Doom. He was also the 9th place finisher for the prestigious Heisman Trophy in college football, and, oh yeah, maybe important, the first African-American world champion in the history of the sport. Quite a resume. But by the time he made his way to the World Wrestling Federation, he'd been on a bit of a career downswing, with spending some time in ECW and flirting with semi-retirement. However, WWF came calling with a pretty interesting setup. Simmons would be paired with the hottest manager of that era, Tammy Sonny Sitch, and he'd immediately be placed into a feud with the current Intercontinental Champion, Ahmed Johnson. Yeah, he would have to change his name to Farouk Assad, but that was pretty much par for the course of that era. However, it's the gimmick that ruined this debut. Described as a gladiator/street thug, you know, all those famous gladiators/street thugs throughout history, the first ever African-American world champion debuted in a weird blue singlet and a faux metal helmet. It was a choice, all right. Fortunately, it was a choice that didn't last long, and Mr. Simmons was able to go on to a long, fruitful career that included such gimmicks as lovable militant leader, demonic acolyte, bar patron, and eventually, speaker of the word, Dan. Number 6, the gobbledygook. In the lead up to the 1990 Survivor Series, there were 3 questions that everybody was talking about. What was the ultimate match of survival? Who was Ted DiBiase's mystery partner? And what was in the giant egg? Well, the ultimate match of survival was a pretty cool concept, where all the winners of the Survivor Series matches would come back and compete in one final match. For whatever reason, this was never done again. Ted DiBiase's mystery partner was some dude in a spooky outfit. Wonder what happened to him. And the third thing? The egg? Well, it was a guy in a turkey suit. Yeah, okay, well, 2 out of 3 isn't bad. Known as the Gobbledygooker, the plan was to have this frolicking fowl be somewhat of a harvest season mascot for the World Wrestling Federation, but at the end of the day, the fans were not particularly entertained. Strangely, the Gobbledygooker has achieved a bit of cult status and to this day appears in the WWE Supercard game as well as action figures. Number 7, the Shockmaster. Oh, come on, admit it, you knew our journey was going to end here. On an episode of Flair for the Gold during Clash of the Champions with fireworks and a faulty breakaway wall, during the introduction of the next member of Sting and Davey Boy Smith's War Games team, a mysterious voice announced the coming of the Shockmaster. The Shockmaster was, of course, the former Tugboat, former Typhoon, and almost former Chic Tugboat, gentleman known as Fred Ottman. Oh, I'm sorry, what is Chic Tugboat? Remember when Sergeant Slaughter turned his back on the United States and started supporting Saddam Hussein's Iraqi regime? Well, that role was almost given to Tugboat. Yes, really. But as the explosion happened, Ottman would tumble his way into wrestling infamy, falling starboard over stern and losing control of his glittery stormtrooper helmet. He'd never recover. The only move to make was to turn him into lovable, clumsy Uncle Fred. Although, in his defense, it's entirely possible that a fur coat-wearing glitter monster wouldn't have gotten over in the first place. Honestly, what was the concept there? But to Ottman's credit, he rolled with it and has been a part of several Shockmaster parodies over the years, now that the character has become a cult classic. Alright, that's our list. Did we forget any disastrous debuts? If so, put them in the comment section below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Till next time, I'm Senor Siete for 7 Rasslin. Bye-bye!